Over the past 30 years, I've built many businesses, up to 9-figure businesses with over $1 billion in combined sales, and I have distilled things down to a simple form for you to use, and I'm going to give you some free advice today on how to scale your business. Now, the 10th thing that I'm going to give you is going to be one of the most important things. You're going to want to stick around for it, because when I look at people get stuck or blocked, this is when they stop at solopreneur and can't take it to full-level, high-level entrepreneur with an important exit step. The first thing that you need to do is use a proper mentality about responsibility. When you build an organization, you're going to have many responsibilities, especially when you're at that solopreneur level. You're the only person, you're doing everything. What you need to do is mentally understand you need to shed responsibilities so that you can grow responsibility. This is a very, very important idea. If you continue to do the same number of things that you did, you can't actually take the time to make the weightier decisions that you're going to need to make when you're building a big organization. I want to distinguish this too. If you go online and you search scale my business, most of the things you're going to find are online businesses. How to be a coach to teach people to coach, or how to be an influencer, or how to get more followers on your social media or YouTube channel. These things are great and they're fine. I'm not saying you can't build businesses that way, but most businesses are not that. Most businesses are the architect who wants to have more locations across the country. It's the orthodontist, one of my friends, who has the most successful orthodontist business in the United States. Another friend of mine, Gary Rabine, who built a paving company, which is now in every single state of the United States. How do you scale these sorts of things? Because this is where most businesses actually are built. So you have to think about it. I'm going to have more responsibility, but I will have less responsibilities. That's number one. Number two is a bit on how to do that. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to delegate out, especially if you're a solopreneur, all of the things that are minimum wage work, okay, or the things you don't like to do. If you don't like to do them, you're probably not getting to them. And if there's minimum wage work, you can get them to many other people. Now, most of the time, this is going to double or triple the amount of time that you have in your schedule, because you're managing all sorts of responsibilities that don't have anything to do with your particular knowledge or your particular talent or your particular skill. Then the third thing you're going to do is you're going to delegate higher level authority things. What are these things? Well, if you're making all of the key decisions in your organization, then you're going to be stuck, because as the organization builds, there will be a greater influx of decisions to make. So I'll look at this from an accounting perspective. If you delegate accounting responsibilities to somebody, at first, you're not going to really delegate too much authority. They're just going to know where to put things in the books. But as your organization builds and you have a controller or eventually a chief financial officer, they're going to have a lot of responsibilities and responsibility. They're going to make a lot of decisions. Now, you don't have to wait till that level. You could hire a salesperson who then becomes a sales manager, and they need to make decisions at that level. You need to have somebody in production. They need to make decisions at that level. Make sure you give them the autonomy, the authority, and the tools in order to make the decisions they need to make to grow the business. And that takes me to the fourth thing. You want to use technology to increase the scale of your business. Whatever it is you're producing, okay, whether it's intellectual or whether it's actual physical, you want to make sure that if it takes 10 people to produce 1,000 units, the next time you want to be able to make 2,000 units and have only 5 people take the effort to build that. Then eventually 10,000 units and only 2 people can produce 10,000 units. That's how you get this inverse relationship between how many people you need and what type of product you can actually put out there. Now, you might be saying to yourself, Dave, that's really neat. You gave this high-level thing. You said, just use technology in order to scale things and it's easy. No. I'm going to tell you how to do this, and it's a simpler thing than you might know. Now, with all the organizations that I've built, I have done this, okay, where we're producing 10 units and then eventually 1 million units, 25 million units. How do you do this? You go to the 10 people who are producing 1,000 units and you say, you have 2 jobs. 1, keep continuing to produce these units in very high quality. 2, figure out a way to produce twice as many with the same amount of people. And then 3 times as many with the same amount of people. 4 and 5. Use technology to do that. Now, this of course includes some of these other steps. You're going to give them the authority, the autonomy, and the tools to be able to do that. But you don't have to do it. And this is a key part of leadership. When you are an entrepreneur and you are a CEO and you want to scale and build something, do not believe that you're going to be the person that's going to come up with all the answers to get this done. The technology is there for whatever it is you're doing, and the people who are working on producing these things will know what that technology is, and they'll want that technology because somebody else has it, and they're probably just going to borrow that same idea, or because they're savvy in this. And if they're not, you may have to replace that person with a person who does think more effectively that way, but you can do that. The fifth thing is you want to think horizontally and vertically. This is true even if you have a website, which is one location where you interface with your customers and clients for people to buy things. Amazon, for example, doesn't have one distribution center. So they think, obviously, the way they do online, they think, vertically and horizontally. What did they think vertically? We're selling books back in the day. We have to sell more books. That's vertical. And then they said, let's add more products. They started going horizontal. And then they said, we need more distribution centers, more and more and more horizontal growth. Now, this is easy when you look at Tom Monahan, one of our guests, when he built Domino's Pizza, and he started from one location to thousands of locations. And how did he do that? And he tells this story of how they tried franchising, but then they grew internally and they distributed things out other ways. So there are scaling ways you can do this to go from one store to the next. Most people that have one store, the Domino's Pizza, for example, one orthodontist or dentist location, one plumbing truck, and or roofing truck, they think, how many more roofs can I do? No, that's not the way to think about it. Or how many more people can I hire here in this location to do more? What if you were to just go to the next town and the next town and the next town and do the same thing you're doing here? That would be horizontal growth. And then you make sure that each one of those towns is more efficient and it grows vertically. If you don't think about horizontal growth and vertical growth, you're going to get trapped in one or the other, and you're not going to do quite as well. The next thing you're going to do, which is the sixth thing, is you're going to hire people on virtue. This is not small. This is a big thing. I have noticed that most people have an appetite when it comes to this sort of advice, like, hey, what technology do I buy? No. This is about the people in your organization who will manage the technology to go to the next level. I'm a big fan of things like AI. This is an important thing, but AI is not going to be a cutting edge advantage for most people actually in business. It's just going to be a way to keep up. You need to use it, because if you don't use it, you're just going to get passed up, because AI advances so fast, and because the access is so readily available for most of us to use it. Just not using it, you'll get behind. But you want to make sure you're not just thinking about those ideas for scale and growth. You're thinking about the people who will actually harness that information, or decide to use that information, or innovate on that information. They're going to be virtuous people. Virtuous people make good decisions. They're fair. They work hard, and they can resist temptations to bad behavior. Then you also want to remember, in the seventh realm, is to fire people with vice. They're like opposite ends of the same, spectrum. But you hire people with virtue and you fire people with vice. When they lie, they cheat, they make bad decisions, they don't work hard, and they can't resist temptations that are bad decisions, you have to get rid of them. Don't think much further than that. Give them a fair shot, but then get rid of them. The eighth thing you want to do is you don't want to get trapped in old growth mentality. What is old growth mentality? Well, you were a young person and you started a lawn mowing company and you mowed the lawns and you grew your business by 10%, and that was a lot and you were excited about it, and now you're trapped in that old thinking. Or you worked for a company and you want to escape that company in order to work for yourself as an entrepreneur. And when you're doing that sort of thing, you remember thinking to yourself, the company used to say, if we could just get double-digit growth, that would be amazing. Well, that might be because they've already done all sorts of horizontal growing, and now they're just trying to grow vertically and be ingenuitive on that. So 10% growth when you're a $10 billion company is $1 billion. That's a lot of raw growth. But if you only have $100,000 worth of revenue in your small local business, 10% is only $10,000. It doesn't really change things too much. You can grow that by 10x to $1 million. You can grow it to 3 million. You can grow it to 30 million. And you can do it in a relatively short period of time when you apply these principles. The ninth thing is, don't get confused on simple bad advice that you get all over the place. So I'm going to give just a couple of examples, and then I want you to distill this. There are all sorts of people online that are going to tell you how to make 7 figures that have never actually moved out of their mother's basement, that rented the Ferrari in their picture in order to look like they're a big deal, but they haven't made 7 figures. In fact, they're barely making $15,000 a year while mom's taking care of them. Don't pay attention to people who haven't built things. Pay attention to people who have built things so they can provide good advice, because otherwise you're going to get things like, you need to be a servant leader, which means you need to take out the garbage if you really want to show people that you care, even when you're at high levels, and now you're servant leading. Nonsense. It's ridiculous. I believe in servant leadership, but if you have experience, you know what it means. If you don't have experience, you get confused and you virtue signal. What it means is you're going to do the best that you can at your job, making high-level, responsible decisions by carrying the responsibility that you have so the organization thrives and everybody in it has the greatest opportunity they have to the highest level. But I'm going to tell you, if you hire somebody to clean the place and you go start cleaning it for them, you're going to make them a bad employee, but you're also going to make them bothered because they're going to wonder why you're doing it. So step aside, do your job, let them do their job, and that's how you serve and lead. And here's this big takeaway. The 10th thing is this: no matter what it is, you can scale it by 1,000. Why am I ending with this? Because way too often I see people say, Dave, I have a particular talent. I do something that nobody else can do, therefore it is not scalable to 1,000. I'm a photographer, or I'm a writer, so you can't scale that. Or I'm the dentist and I know specifically how to do a technique, so you can't scale it. It's nonsense. It's not true. Starting with the orthodontist friend of mine, all he does is bring in good dentists, make sure they understand the techniques that he does. He approves those techniques and he uses his brand in order to expand that. Dale Chihuly. Dale Chihuly is a glass blower, an artist, a particular artist who had a unique skill, who had an injury that didn't allow him to blow the glass. So what did he do? He built a $30 million organization where he has other artisans come in and he works with them to make sure that he has his style. His artwork is in the Bellagio and all over the place. World famous glass blower, and he doesn't do the glass blowing anymore, but he uses his brand. James Patterson, the #1 most read author out there, and his books aren't even written by him. They are written with his brand in a way that is like his books that he then approves of. So he says this has the James Patterson feel to it. It's got that quality of the story, and people go out there and they read it because it is approved in that particular way. We have to remember that you don't have to do everything yourself, and it is only pride and ego that gets in the way from you believing that somebody else can do the very thing that it is that you do, no matter how particular it is. If you do these things, you can become a giant and we can go slay dragons together.